Annyeong, I'm pianist Yoon Kim. I hope you're well. It's been such a long time for me to say hello to you. Today, I want to talk about something that we all need a reminder, which is a concept of perseverance. And so is how to create a new habit, 5 tips that I utilize myself and often I advise to my own students as well. I started to play piano when I was 4 years old in Busan, South Korea. I went to this local music school, which was just a couple blocks away from my own house. I remember the path vividly. There was always the grocery store, and the owner of the store always say hello to me and say, "Have a great day, little pie." And when I entered the school, I took up my shoes and found the room that was empty and started to my own practice. And often there were circles that my teacher drew on the previous day, and I drew each line across the circle and started my own practice until it was my turn to take a lesson with my teacher. Lesson lasted about 10 minutes. I remember practicing Bayer and Czerny and hand-on exercises. I remember going to school every day except weekends. Because my parents were busy with their own businesses, going to a music school and get on time for my lesson was my own responsibility. And I remember I took it very seriously. Almost every day around 2 o'clock, I packed my bag and went to the music school and started to practice on my own there and took a lesson and came home. What I realize now, looking back my early years of my piano studies, is that I learned such an important concept at that time, which was of habit forming. Doing something sporadically, it's much harder than doing every day. And I think it's much harder to do one thing at different times a day than a specific time a day. The fact that I went to music school almost every day, except weekends, and around 2 o'clock, it's not like I had a great motivation to practice all the time. I just stay on track with that system that it's created for me. Fast forward now, I have been playing piano almost 38 years since then, and I think I still use that kind of formula in my life to stay in track with my own practices. No, nobody tell me when to practice and how much I practice. It's my own decision, but in order for me to stay on track and stay motivated, I have to create a habit that I can live within. When I look at young students, especially someone who has a great musical talent, people often think that's all we need to be a great musicians. But what I realize is that not only you do need musical aptitude, but also, maybe more importantly, you do need a perseverance and be able to put our best efforts forward all the time. But we, as a human, it's really difficult to push all the time. That's why so many other fields, they emphasize the importance of habit forming. And I do believe this is one of the greatest skills that we can also adapt for our lives, whether you're professional musicians or not. One of my students came to me and said, "I really intended to practice almost every day, but I ended up practicing a couple days a week and felt guilty to coming to a lesson." And I asked him, "So when do you practice?" And he said, "Whenever I have time, a day." But he said every time he tried to find the time just appears somehow. And I told him that he does not have habit or schedule, a structure or system for him to be able to practice consistently. So what we tried to do with him was that find something that you do always consistently. For him, he had a habit of drinking coffee in the afternoon. So I said, okay, we're gonna make that time for our piano practice time habit time. So what we did is that for 3 weeks consecutively, we're gonna try after that afternoon coffee, you're gonna sit down and practice for 10 minutes. If you want to practice more than 10 minutes, you're welcome to do. You can do it any other time. For that afternoon coffee, just to try as 1/10 of what you can actually do. So minimal effort, just have a consistent sit down and do something. He said he was actually tempted to practice for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. But I said no, because if you do one day for an hour, but the next day you're gonna have excuse not to do. So it's more important to build a consistency when you first create a new habit. But the rule here is for 3 weeks, you have to have a consecutive days for 3 weeks. So we made a chart which had a 21 little box. So each time you complete that task, you make an X sign. So the X sign has to continue consecutively. If you happen to miss the one day, unfortunately, you have to tear out the paper again and start all over. So once he completed that 3 weeks of initial habit forming, then we graduated and move on to the 66-day habit calendar. Why 66? I don't know, but a lot of people researched that in order for one to have a habit, it takes up to from 30 days to 6 months. It varies depending on the people, but they say 66 is about an average number. In fact, if you go to the internet and 66 habit calendar, there are thousands of it that you can download for free. So I suggest for you also download one of the 66-day habit calendar and write down what habit that you actually want to incorporate. Probably more likely for you also to practice more, or particular piece that you want to improve. Let's say you are working on Beethoven sonata. Write that down, that particular sonata as a goal. And then you start to practice that 66 days consecutively. For this particular calendar, even if you miss one day, you don't tear it out. For this calendar, what I suggest is keep 2-day rule, which is that you can miss one day, but you can't miss 2 days in a row. I love this rule because many times that there's times that you can't really do it, then instead of you like, oh, I screwed up this habit forming, attempt, instead of give up altogether, you're gentle to yourself. Yes, I couldn't do it today, but I will be back tomorrow and start all again. One of the other important things that I find is very useful is to have this chart, either this 21 days chart or the 66-day calendar. Place it somewhere that you can't miss, either on top of your desk or on the refrigerator, so that every day you pass by, you can see that. I still use 66-day habit calendar all the time. Even though I already have established good habit of practicing, the way I use is, let's say I have a concert coming up. I really want to start with a certain piece that I want to consistently have it in my system. Then I made a goal that for 66 days, I'm consistently going to push this particular piece. If I don't make that piece as a front of my to-do practice list, this piece may be in and out of my routine. But when I make that as a priority, this piece after 66 days, which is actually longer than you think, the piece was somewhere that much far better than when I started. So I suggest to you today, what are you working on right now? What is one activity that you want to put in your life consistently? Then start for 3 weeks consecutively and 1/10 of your effort. And after that, incorporate 66-day calendar and consistently try to keep up with it. But if you have to, you can miss one day, but not 2 days in a row. I'm so curious if you make any progress with whatever activity that you want to improve in your life. And please let me know how it goes. And also, please share in the comments below what is one thing that you attempt to do for this habit forming activity. I hope this video was somewhat helpful for you, and I hope to see you next video. 안녕!